Imagine retirement. Are you picturing lounging on a sun-drenched beach with a good book, maybe exploring the winding ancient streets of some European city, or maybe finally dedicating hours, perhaps even days, to that passion project that's been waiting patiently in your garage or, your art studio? Retirement is often painted as this golden age of finally having the time to do what you love.
And it absolutely can be that golden age. But there's a really crucial financial question sort of lurking beneath those dreams. What if the money runs out before the dream does?
Right.
Precisely because you focus so much on covering the basics that you forgot to budget for all the fun stuff.
That is the core challenge we're trying to tackle today. We're taking a deep dive into estimating retirement expenses, moving deliberately beyond just covering the absolute necessities. The food, the shelter, the fundamental costs of living.
Yeah, the must-haves.
Our mission here is to zero in on the expenses that truly define an enjoyable retirement. The travel, the hobbies, the experiences, maybe even those unexpected splurges that make life feel rich and fulfilling.
And sometimes, as the sources we looked at make really clear, understanding the unexpected costs is just as vital as planning for the exciting ones. Because those unplanned expenses, they can quickly eat away at the funds you intended for that discretionary spending if you're not really prepared for them.
Exactly. So to navigate this pretty complex landscape, we've gathered a stack of material pulling insights from financial planning experts, in-depth research reports from places like the Employee Benefit Research Institute and the Society of Actuaries.
Good sources.
And maybe most illuminatingly, filtering through real-life perspectives and budgets shared online by actual retirees, like on platforms such as Reddit. So it gives us this blend of expert projection and, lived experience.
Yeah, what people are actually doing. Our goal for this deep dive is really to help you identify those often overlooked discretionary costs, understand how they interact with the non-negotiables and the unpredictable stuff, and equip you with insights on how to budget and plan for them effectively.
Right.
It's about ensuring your retirement isn't just financially stable, but also personally fulfilling. It's making sure that vision you have for your later years can actually become a sustainable reality.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So we often hear about retirement planning covering essentials, but why is focusing beyond those basics really so fundamentally crucial? What's the risk if you don't?
Well, the sources really highlight what's been termed the underestimation problem. And it's a significant issue where many Americans, even those nearing or already in retirement, simply aren't prepared for the full spectrum of costs they're going to face. The Employee Benefit Research Institute, or EDRI, their nonprofit focused on benefits research, they did a survey that found fewer than half of Americans, like we're talking less than 50%, have actually planned for relatively common things like emergency expenses, or even just taken the step to calculate their potential health costs in retirement.
Wow, less than half for emergency costs.
That statistic alone is pretty striking. It suggests a huge number of people are heading into retirement with some major blind spots in their financial forecasts. It really does. And the Society of Actuaries, that's the professional organization for actuaries, they reinforce this finding. They found that while, a large majority of pre-retirees, and even those already retired, have thought about how their lives might change, more family time, hobbies, maybe moving.
The fun stuff again.
Right. But far fewer actually feel very prepared for the financial implications of future events. We're talking only about 16% of pre-retirees and 27% of retirees feeling truly financially ready.
16%. That's low.
It is. So there's this real disconnect between anticipating the lifestyle changes and feeling financially secure enough to actually handle them comfortably, especially the costs attached to those desired changes.
That gap between thinking about retirement and feeling financially ready for it, that seems like the absolute root of the problem.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a lack of distinction between different types of expenses earlier.
Precisely. The sources we looked at, like articles from Central Coast Wealth Management, Hightower Advisors, and WNS Financial Advisors, they help us categorize expenses pretty clearly. They generally break them down into mandatory and discretionary.
Okay, so the four walls versus the sun stuff, maybe, is a simple way to think about it.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. Essential or mandatory expenses are the non-negotiables, right? The costs you absolutely must cover to live. This includes your housing costs, mortgage, rent, property taxes, homeowners insurance, and crucially, ongoing maintenance. Can't forget that. It covers utilities, electricity, gas, water, internet, food obviously is essential. Transportation too, car maintenance, gas, insurance, maybe public transport fares. Core healthcare needs like doctor visits, prescriptions, premiums not covered by Medicare, those fall here, as do other insurance premiums and any, lingering debt payments. These are the absolute bedrock expenses.
Got it, the must-pays. And then discretionary expenses.
Yeah.
That's where life gets interesting.
Yes, exactly. These are the expenses that genuinely enhance your life, bring joy, support your lifestyle goals, but aren't strictly necessary for survival. This is the category where travel, hobbies, entertainment, dining out, personal care beyond just basic needs, and gifts for loved ones. That's where they all reside.
So the pitfall then is focusing almost entirely on those mandatory costs and then being completely surprised by how much the discretionary ones actually add up.
That's exactly what sources like Bolden, which is a financial planning resource, really emphasize. They explicitly state that things like travel, personal care, hobbies, and gifts are too often not budgeted appropriately before retirement. People run the numbers on housing, food, utilities, maybe healthcare.
The basics.
The basics, right. But they underestimate the financial commitment required to actually live the retirement lifestyle they've been picturing.
And these aren't just minor costs, right? They can significantly impact a budget if you haven't planned.
Oh, they absolutely do. Bolden specifically warns that these discretionary costs can quickly add up and could cause major financial issues later in life if they have not been accounted for. I mean, think about it. If you planned maybe $50 a month for a hobby during your working years because you only had a few hours for it, that figure could potentially explode to several hundred or even, $1,000 a month in retirement if you suddenly have 40 hours a week to dedicate to it. You might need more materials, equipment, travel for it, pay fees. That shift in just time availability can dramatically increase the potential cost of that hobby.
Wow. Okay. So it's not just about having enough money to survive. It's really about having enough money to thrive. And planning for the thrive part isn't optional if that's actually your retirement goal.
It's fundamental to achieving an enjoyable retirement. The sources are very clear on this. Discretionary spending is precisely what supports an enjoyable and fulfilling experience in retirement. And importantly, your retirement goals, including all those discretionary ones, whether it's learning Italian, taking up woodworking seriously, or traveling the globe, those goals are what ultimately dictate how much you need to save in the first place.
Right.
If your dream involves, say, extensive international travel every year, you need a substantially different savings target than someone who plans to focus mainly on local activities and maybe gardening.
Which perfectly brings us to the really big one that features in so many retirement dreams. Travel.
Yeah, it comes up constantly. It's consistently mentioned across nearly all the sources, from the expert financial articles to the conversations we looked at on Reddit, as a top retirement priority. People put off travel dreams during working years because of time constraints mostly. And retirement is seen as the chance to finally make them happen.
But budgeting for travel feels incredibly variable. It's not like a predictable mortgage payment, is it?
Not at all. That's because the cost varies wildly. As Kiplinger, the financial publisher, points out, there's just no single number you can plug in for travel. It depends entirely on how you travel and how much you travel.
Okay.
Kiplinger suggests a potential range of, get this, $10,000 up to maybe $50,000 annually for their clients who are really focused on travel. And even that massive range just highlights how difficult it is to give a simple estimate.
$10,000 versus $50,000 a year just for travel. I mean, that could be someone's entire retirement income depending on their situation. That's a huge swing.
It's enormous, and it's driven by several key factors. Are you traveling solo as a couple, or are you maybe bringing along family members, grandkids? Your travel style is paramount. Are you seeking out budget hostels or maybe camping, or are you booking luxury hotels like, say, the Four Seasons?
Big difference.
Huge. Are you flying budget airlines and hunting for deals? Or do you prioritize comfort and book higher end or even business first class airfare? These choices just dramatically impact the bottom line.
You mentioned dipping into those real life perspectives from Reddit. What kind of range did you see there? And were there any specific examples that stood out?
Oh, The Reddit threads are incredibly illuminating because you see the full spectrum of human experience and the financial realities behind it. For instance, one person shared that their independent wife spends about $9,600 a year on solo trips. And she fits in varied experiences, including like a $1,200 spa weekend as part of that total. So it shows even within a moderate budget, you can include some higher cost single experiences.
Right. It's about balancing different kinds of trips within that budget.
Exactly. Another couple was talking about budgeting maybe $10,000 to $12,000 a year for 2 good holidays, thinking one international trip, maybe one closer to home within the US or Canada. Others were budgeting $20,000 annually, but even they admitted, they could easily spend $30,000 depending on how ambitious the trips got that year.
And then I imagine you see the other end of the spectrum in those forums too.
Oh, definitely. The stories from individuals or couples who, perhaps very successful with their investments, maybe retired early, saw significant portfolio growth. They explicitly stated they don't budget at all for travel, meaning they don't set a strict limit, they just spend freely based on opportunity and desire.
Wow.
One example shared was spending $6,000 for just a 5-night cruise, and separately $35,000 for a month-long multi-country trip that included first-class airfare.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting, that whole idea of maxing out travel, because you have the financial resources and critically, you have the time and the physical ability.
It's a powerful perspective that really emerged from those discussions. It seems driven by the realization that the early years of retirement, often called the go-go years by places like Corebridge Financial, are when retirees are typically most active and healthy.
Makes sense.
So they're prioritizing experiences like ambitious travel while they can, understanding that physical limitations might increase in later years. As one Redditor put it, they feel like they're in the fourth quarter and they want to make the most of it now. It really underscores that for some, the primary constraint on travel isn't just money, but that finite window of peak health and energy.
So travel spending isn't just some fixed number you set. It can actually follow a pattern throughout the stages of retirement.
That's a critical point for planning, absolutely. Corebridge Financial's model of retirement phases, the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. It suggests that spending patterns, particularly on discretionary things like travel, entertainment, and hobbies, they tend to be highest in those active early years.
Yeah, you're just retired, you got energy, maybe some pent-up travel desires from decades of working. It makes total sense you'd spend more on experiences then.
Exactly. Then, in the slow-go years, typically starting maybe in your late 70s or early 80s, spending tends to moderate as people naturally slow down a bit. They may not pursue travel or really strenuous activities quite as much.
Okay.
And finally, the no-go years, where spending can actually be lowest on overall lifestyle stuff, often shifting more towards healthcare needs and maybe in-home support, as people travel less and activities become more limited. One anecdote we saw mentioned travel just becoming genuinely harder and less enjoyable after age 75, which shifted their focus significantly.
That means your retirement budget shouldn't just assume a flat line for travel expenses for, say, 30 years. It needs to be flexible and potentially even front-loaded for those early years.
Absolutely. And so how do you budget smartly for travel, regardless of which phase you think you'll be in or your overall budget level? The sources offer some really practical tips. Kiplinger suggests a specific strategy. Hold the funds you anticipate needing for big travel purchases within the next, say, 12 to 24 months in cash or cash equivalents.
Cash. But in retirement, isn't the goal generally to keep your money invested in growing? Why hold cash?
It is for your long-term needs, definitely. But for money you'll need relatively soon, like within the next 2 years for that major trip, or maybe a car purchase or a home repair you're planning, holding it in cash is about minimizing risk.
Yeah.
You just don't want to be in a position where the stock market tanks, say, 20% precisely when you need to pay for that cruise or buy those plane tickets, right? That forces you to sell investments at a loss. Cash alternatives, yeah, they offer minimal growth, but they provide stability and liquidity for those near-term known or potential expenses.
So it's really a risk management strategy for short-term spending goals. Don't expose money needed soon to market volatility. Makes sense.
Exactly. Another key strategy highlighted is leveraging the inherent flexibility that retirement often offers. While working, you're constrained by vacation days, peak travel time.
Right. School holidays, summer.
Exactly. Travel deals often come with inconvenient schedules, early morning flights, off-season dates, blackouts during those peak times. Retirees, generally speaking, have the gift of time. They can jump on these less convenient, but often much cheaper opportunities.
Like signing up for those flight deal alerts and things.
Precisely. Kiplinger mentions services like Travelzoo, Jack's Flight Club, and Going used to be Scott's cheap flights that'll loot you to significantly discounted airfare or package deals. Setting up alerts on Google Flights for destinations you're interested in is another simple tactic. That flexibility is a significant financial advantage retirees can and probably should leverage.
And credit card points and miles seem like such an obvious way to reduce costs, too.
Yeah.
Did that come up?
Oh, constantly. This came up repeatedly in the Reddit discussions as a go-to strategy. People talked about using accumulated points and miles to cover flights and hotel stays entirely, or even just partially, significantly reducing the actual cash outlay for trips. The strategy involves putting nearly all spending on credit cards, the right cards, obviously to maximize point accumulation. Some even discuss more advanced tactics like strategically signing up for and canceling travel rewards cards just to earn those large sign-up bonuses. They acknowledged it might temporarily ding their credit score,
Right.
but argued that's maybe less concerning if they don't anticipate needing major loans in retirement anyway.
Interesting trade-off there, weighing the points against the credit score impact. What about alternative travel styles? Are people adopting different ways to travel to make it more affordable or, sustainable over the long haul in retirement?
This is a really rich area from the real-life perspectives we saw. Many people seem to be embracing slower, longer-term travel. The concept of Airbnb extended stay, which offers discounts for stays of a month or longer, was mentioned quite a bit as a way to actually live in a location like, say, Cuenca in Ecuador, or Medellin in Colombia, Lisbon, Mexico City, Penang in Malaysia, for a significantly lower cost per night than traditional short-term rentals or hotels.
So it's more like temporarily living somewhere rather than just being a tourist passing through.
Exactly. People shared how they research neighborhoods carefully using online tools, find local grocery stores so they can cook meals instead of constantly eating out, which is a major cost saver.
Huge saver.
And they look for expatriate or English-speaking community groups for social connection. It's about finding this balance between exploration and building a sort of temporary home base.
That kind of travel sounds really appealing, actually, and potentially much more budget-friendly than a whole series of shorter, fast-paced trips.
It certainly can be. Other alternative styles mentioned included staying in local, cheaper Airbnbs or guest houses, sometimes found for as low as maybe $75, $100 a night in various international spots, or using more budget-friendly hotel chains even for domestic travel, like Embassy Suites, which can be cheaper for families since they often include breakfast and have suite layouts. And one person decided a travel trailer was the right approach for them, allowing for incredible flexibility and enabling their wanderlust within the U.S., essentially turning their housing cost into a mobile travel cost. These examples really highlight that travel in retirement doesn't have to look like expensive resort vacations. It can be tailored really creatively to fit different budgets and priorities.
Okay, so beyond the big ticket item of travel, hobbies are another core part of the retirement dream for so many people, finally having time for those passions.
Absolutely. And the sources definitely recognize this as a distinct and significant retirement expense category. Financial planning firms like Bolden, Central Coast, Hightower, WNS Financial, Midwest Capital Advisors, they all specifically list hobbies as something that really needs to be budgeted for.
What kind of activities are they generally including under that umbrella? What counts as a hobby in this context?
Well, the examples provided or implied in the sources cover a pretty wide range. Things like woodworking, stamp collecting, jigsaw puzzles, playing a musical instrument like the guitar, fishing, photography. It could also include activities like serious gardening, pursuing gourmet cooking, attending art classes or gallery shows regularly, maybe even restoring vintage cars. Pretty much anything you dedicate significant time and potentially money to purely for enjoyment.
And just like with travel, the cost implication here is often tied to the time available, isn't it? More time equals potentially more spending on the hobby.
Precisely. Hightower Advisors makes this exact point. Hobbies can become more expensive in retirement specifically because you finally have the dedicated time to pursue them deeply. If you've always just dabbled in photography on weekends, maybe retirement means investing in high-end camera bodies, multiple lenses, traveling to specific locations for landscape shots, joining photography workshops, spending hours on editing software.
Right, it scales up.
It scales up, all of which have associated costs that far exceed just casual picture taking on your phone.
So the budgeting for hobbies needs to reflect the intensity you plan to pursue them with, as well as the type of hobby itself.
Absolutely. And it's not just structured hobbies either. The sources are good about highlighting other often overlooked discretionary items that fall into that fun stuff or lifestyle enhancement category. Personal care is one. Maybe you get haircuts more often, or indulge in spa treatments, or buy higher-end skincare products now that you have more time and inclination.
Gifts for friends and family is another one that might increase in retirement, right?
Yes. Bolden, Central Coast, and W&S all list this. Retirement often means more time for visiting, attending events like weddings or grandkids' birthdays, celebrating milestones with loved ones, which can naturally lead to more gift giving than maybe during your busy working years.
Oh, makes sense.
Entertainment and dining out also tend to feature more prominently in retirement budgets, according to Hightower, W&S, and Central Coast, simply because people have more leisure time available.
And things like club dues or membership fees can be ongoing costs.
Oh, definitely. Whether it's a gym membership, maybe a country club, a social club, or even just memberships to a museum or botanical garden you now visit regularly, these can be recurring costs that need accounting for. Hightower and W&S mention those. They also list professional services like hiring financial, legal, or tax advisors. While some level of this might be necessary, the extent of their use can be discretionary. For instance, choosing a full-service wealth manager versus maybe a fee-only advisor, or needing more complex tax advice due to active investments or estate planning can significantly impact the costs involved.
Okay. And what about large, maybe less frequent, but still significant discretionary expenses? Things that aren't monthly bills.
Yeah, W&S Financial lists major home improvements and furnishings. Retirement is often when people finally have the time, or decide it's the time, to tackle big projects like renovating a kitchen or bathroom, maybe landscaping expensive gardens, buying all new furniture, perhaps even furnishing a second home or a vacation property.
Right.
These are large, voluntary expenses that need to be factored into long-term planning, even if they aren't annual costs.
And starting a small business is mentioned too, as a potential lifestyle factor that costs money.
Yes, W&S includes this, framing it as something that can increase costs, particularly due to startup expenses. For some people, this might be sort of a continuation of work, but for others, it's really pursuing a passion project that maybe turns into a small venture. Either way, it has financial implications beyond just your day-to-day living expenses.
Okay, so we've talked about the dreams, the travel, the hobbies, the fun stuff. But the reality check here is that those mandatory costs, and especially the unexpected ones, can significantly impact how much money is actually left over for those discretionary items. I mean, you can't really take that dream trip if you're suddenly facing huge, unexpected medical bills.
Absolutely. This is where the two categories of expenses become intrinsically linked. The sources are really clear. Overlooking or underplanning for the essential and the unexpected costs directly threatens your ability to fund your desired discretionary lifestyle. It eats into the fun money.
So what are some of the major reality checks the sources highlight, the big potential disruptors?
Well, inflation is a critical and ongoing one, emphasized by Bolden and RBC Wealth Management. It's that silent force that just reduces your purchasing power over time. If your retirement income, whether it's from Social Security, pensions, investment withdrawals, doesn't keep pace with the rising cost of goods and services, you can simply afford less and less with the same amount of money each year.
So you absolutely can't just assume that today's dollar buys the same amount of stuff in 10 or 20 years.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental error.
Crucially not. Bolden highlights that whether you project your expenses using, say, a 2% average inflation rate or maybe a higher 4 or 5% rate makes a massive difference in how much money you'll actually need over a 20 or 30-year retirement. Historically, general U.S. inflation from 1960 to 2023 averaged about 3.8%.
Okay.
Though the past 30 years have been lower, averaging around 2.27%. Experts use different figures for projections, maybe 2.5% on the optimistic side or maybe 4 or 5% for more conservative planning, especially given some of the recent inflationary periods we've seen.
And medical inflation is often even higher than general inflation.
Right.
That's a specific worry.
It is. Healthcare costs have pretty consistently outpaced the general consumer price index. RBC Wealth Management, for example, specifically uses a 5% inflation number just for projecting healthcare costs for their clients who are near or in retirement, acknowledging this higher rate of increase for medical expenses.
Okay. What about future maintenance costs on big assets like homes and cars? Those things don't just stop needing attention once you retire.
No, they don't. Bolden points this out specifically. Your home will eventually need a new roof, maybe foundation repairs, painting, pavement work. Your car will need maintenance, repairs, and eventually replacement. These aren't daily expenses, but they are large, necessary costs that are honestly hard to predict with precision.
Yeah, you can't exactly schedule your appliance breaking down or your roof starting to leak in 5 years.
Exactly. You can try to budget a certain amount yearly for general maintenance, or maybe set aside funds for anticipated major replacements, like a furnace or a roof based on its age. But unexpected breakdowns, accidents, or damage from extreme weather events can drastically increase these costs without any warning. Bolden and W&S both mention this risk.
And that leads us nicely into just general emergency and unforeseen costs, the truly unexpected stuff.
Right. The sources, including Central Coast, Bolden, and W&S, are very clear. The unexpected will happen in retirement just like it does during your working life. This could be that leaking roof, a major appliance failure, serious plumbing issues, damage from a natural disaster, a car accident, or any number of other unforeseen events requiring immediate funds.
So how do you plan for the unplanned?
Well, planning for this isn't just about having an emergency fund, although that's absolutely critical. It's also about making sure you have adequate insurance coverage, home, auto, health, and building overall flexibility into your retirement plan so that a single large unexpected bill doesn't completely derail everything else.
Taxes are another major expense that people sometimes seem to underestimate in retirement, maybe assuming their tax burden will just disappear or shrink dramatically.
They are a really significant factor. Bolden, Hightower, and W&S all list taxes as a major expense throughout life, including retirement. Your income sources in retirement, Social Security benefits, pension payments, withdrawals from pre-tax retirement accounts like 401ks or traditional IRAs, interest, dividends, capital gains, they can all be taxable, though the rates and rules get pretty complex.
Yeah.
Bolden's source includes data from the Tax Foundation showing average federal income tax paid by different income percentiles. And if you look at those numbers and multiply them by the 20, 30, or even more years you might be retired, well, the cumulative cost is substantial.
That really puts the scale into perspective, doesn't it? It's definitely not a minor detail to overlook.
No, it shows why tax planning is so sophisticated and requires careful consideration throughout retirement. Bolden mentions strategies that exist to potentially reduce your tax exposure. Things like using qualified charitable distributions or QCDs.
Okay, what are those?
So QCDs allow individuals age 70 and a half or older to donate money directly from their IRA to a qualified charity. That donation can count towards their required minimum distribution, RMD, but the money isn't considered taxable income to them, so it's a tax-efficient way to give. Other strategies involve carefully managing the order you withdraw money from different types of accounts, taxable, tax-deferred, tax-free, like Roth accounts, or maybe considering Roth conversions during lower income years to shift money into those tax-free buckets for the future.
Complex stuff. Healthcare, though, often seems to be flagged as maybe the largest, most consistently underestimated retirement cost across many of the sources.
It's a critical point emphasized by Bolden, Central Coast, and RBC Wealth Management, absolutely. The assumption that Medicare will cover everything is just incorrect. While Medicare is essential, you must budget for significant out-of-pocket costs. These include premiums for Parts B, D, and potentially supplemental plans or Medicare Advantage plans, deductibles, copays, and then all the services Medicare doesn't cover at all, like most dental care, vision, hearing aids, and importantly, long-term care.
And the estimates for these lifetime out-of-pocket healthcare costs are pretty sobering, aren't they?
They are substantial, yeah. Fidelity's 2024 estimate suggests an average retired couple age 65 today might need around $315,000 in after-tax savings just to cover healthcare expenses throughout their retirement. For a single individual, that estimate is about $165,000.
$315,000 for a couple.
Yeah.
After tax. Wow. And RBC Wealth Management had an even higher figure, didn't they?
Yes, RBC estimates the lifetime healthcare cost for an average healthy 65-year-old couple today could be as high as $683,306. And notably, that figure excludes the cost of long-term care, which is a whole separate, potentially much larger expense bucket.
Good grief.
They also provide data showing how annual healthcare costs tend to increase significantly with age. A couple aged 65-74 might average around $13,000 per year in out-of-pocket costs. That jumps to about $23,000 annually for ages 75-84, and then it spikes to around $40,000 per year for those aged 85 and older on average.
Those later life costs are really eye-opening. It highlights that healthcare isn't some static expense. It typically escalates precisely when you might have less physical ability for other activities or less ability to earn extra income.
It really emphasizes the need for personalized estimates, as Bolden suggests, based on your specific location, costs vary regionally, your own health conditions, and the type of Medicare coverage or supplemental plans you choose. The sources also mention valuable saving tools specifically for healthcare, like health savings accounts or HSAs.
Right, HSAs, how they all.
Well, if you have a high deductible health plan, an HSA offers this powerful triple tax advantage. Your contributions are tax deductible or pre-tax, the money grows tax-free inside the account, and then withdrawals are completely tax-free when used for qualified medical expenses. And that includes many costs you'll face in retirement. Roth 401ks are also valuable because those withdrawals in retirement are tax-free, providing a pool of funds that can be used for any expense, including healthcare, without adding to your taxable income that year.
Okay. And as you mentioned just now, long-term care, or LTC, is a whole separate category of potentially exorbitant costs that Medicare typically does not cover. This seems like a huge potential blind spot.
It's a critical point. Bolden and others stress, yeah. LTC costs are primarily for assistance with daily living activities, things like bathing, dressing, eating provided in various settings, not necessarily acute medical treatment. Genworth's 2024 data on national average annual costs really illustrates the scale. Adult daycare averages around $26,000 per year. Assisted living in a private one-bedroom averages around $70,800 per year. A home health aide averages around $77,800 per year. And a private room in a nursing home averages a staggering $127,800 per year.
And those are annual costs. Care can obviously last for multiple years.
Exactly. The average length of stay in assisted living is about 28 months, according to Bolden, but stays in nursing homes can certainly be longer. Sources like Bolden caution that lifetime costs for long-term care can easily double or even triple those annual estimates, depending on the level of care needed and the duration.
So what's the solution? LTC insurance.
Well, LTC insurance is one option to help cover these costs, but it can be expensive, it can be complex, and its effectiveness really depends on the specific policy details. Premiums can go up, benefits might be limited. Regardless of whether you pursue insurance, having a plan for this possibility, how you would fund potential long-term care needs if they arise, is essential, because the costs are simply too high for most people to absorb unexpectedly without severely impacting their remaining retirement funds or relying heavily on family.
Okay, shifting gears slightly to another common reality check. Retiring sooner than you expected. This happens a lot.
It's a surprisingly frequent occurrence, yes. Bolden, citing data from both EBRI and the Society of Actuaries, points out that about fully half of all retirees report leaving the workforce earlier than they had originally planned. The median actual retirement age reported by the Society of Actuaries is 60, even though many people say they plan to work into their mid or late 60s.
Wow, half retire early. What usually causes this earlier than planned retirement? Is it usually by choice?
Often not. Various factors, frequently outside of your control. Health issues, your own or a spouse's job loss due to company downsizing or industry changes, or needing to step away to care for an aging parent or other family member are really common reasons cited in the research.
And the financial impact is pretty obvious.
Right. If you retire earlier than planned, it means two things financially. You have fewer years to save and let your investments grow, and you need your accumulated savings to cover costs for more years than you anticipated.
That significantly increases the pressure on your savings to last.
It absolutely does. Bolden's source mentions something called bridge employment, like taking on part-time work or maybe consulting in retirement as one potential strategy people use to bridge the financial gap if they retire earlier than originally planned, but still need some income stream.
Longevity is another factor we should touch on, just plain living longer than you might have initially planned for.
Yeah, and this is fundamentally a wonderful development, right? People are living longer, often healthier lives than previous generations. Life expectancy has increased significantly over the decades, as Bolden notes. However, purely financially speaking, it means your retirement nest egg needs to stretch further.
More years equals more money needed.
Exactly. You need to plan for your money lasting well beyond your initially projected lifespan, just in case you live well into your 90s or even beyond 100, which is becoming increasingly common. This requires really careful investment management and withdrawal strategies to avoid the nightmare scenario of running out of money late in life.
And finally, one more reality check. The sandwich generation phenomenon, supporting multiple generations at once.
Right. This refers to the increasing number of adults, often baby boomers or Gen X, who find themselves financially supporting both their aging parents and their adult children simultaneously. Bolden, Central Coast, and WNS all list this as a potential unexpected expense that can significantly strain a retirement budget.
How common is this?
Data cited by Bolden from an AARP study shows just how common it is. About 32% of midlife adults provide regular financial support to their parents, and a significant 51%, more than half, report supporting their adult children aged 25 or older.
Wow. That kind of multi-generational support can take a really big bite out of funds intended for your own retirement living or that discretionary spending we talked about.
It absolutely can. This support might involve direct cash outlays, helping with rent, debt, daily expenses, or it could involve indirect costs like lost wages if you need to take time off your own work to provide care, or paying for services to support family members. Helping family is explicitly listed as an unexpected or potential expense in several sources, and you definitely see this reflected in those Reddit anecdotes where retirees discuss the financial strain of supporting adult children or aging parents deep into their own retirement.
Okay, so we've laid out the foundation, we've discussed the dreams, the travel, the hobbies, all the fun stuff, and we've faced the hard reality of the mandatory costs, the unexpected costs, the rising costs. How do you take all of this complex, sometimes conflicting information, the desires and the potential challenges, and actually put it into a cohesive, actionable plan? Where do you start?
Well, the sources are pretty much unanimous on this. Detailed budgeting is absolutely paramount. Bolden, Central Coast, Hightower, WNS, they all stress the necessity of creating and, importantly, maintaining a detailed budget in retirement.
Why is the detail so important? Isn't just a rough estimate good enough sometimes?
The detail really helps you truly understand where your money is going. It forces you to confront the actual costs of your desired lifestyle and also the potential costs of the unexpected things we just discussed. A detailed budget helps you identify all your costs, see where you might be overspending relative to your plan, prioritize your spending, putting those essentials first, always, and find areas where you might be able to cut back if necessary, maybe to free up funds for other goals or to handle those unexpected events.
Right.
Bolden specifically mentions having a retirement planner tool with over 75 different categories, including a specific section just for one-time expenses, to really help people think through everything, from the recurring monthly bills to that potential new roof 10 years down the road, or a planned large vacation next year.
So the process starts with prioritizing those expenses.
Yes, that's the core principle outlined by Central Coast, Hightower, and WNS. You prioritize your essential expenses first, making absolutely sure those non-negotiable four-walls costs are covered. Then, based on your income sources and how much is left after essentials, you budget for your discretionary expenses. The goal is to find a balance where you can maintain your desired lifestyle, including the travel and hobbies that bring you joy, without jeopardizing your ability to cover essentials or handle those unexpected costs. It's really about being intentional with every dollar.
And this isn't something you just do once when you retire and then forget about, right? It needs to be ongoing.
Absolutely not. Central Coast and RBC really emphasize that retirement planning and budgeting isn't a one-time event. It requires ongoing monitoring and adjustment. You need to regularly review your plan, your budget, your asset performance, because circumstances inevitably change over a long retirement.
Yeah, your lifestyle will probably change, the market will fluctuate, healthcare needs might crop up unexpectedly.
Exactly. As Central Coast and WNS note, lifestyle changes like deciding you want to travel more frequently than you initially planned, or maybe needing to support family members unexpectedly, or facing increasing healthcare needs, those will increase your costs. Conversely, things like moving to a lower cost of living area, finally paying off a mortgage, or maybe downsizing your home can decrease your costs. Adapting your budget and your overall financial plan to those go-go, slow-go, no-go phases we talked about earlier is a big part of this necessary ongoing adjustment process.
And if navigating all these numbers and variables and potential curveballs feels, frankly, overwhelming, which it might for a lot of people.
That's precisely where seeking professional guidance comes in, and it's highly recommended. Working with experienced financial advisors is highlighted as essential by experts like Courtney Mahler, who was quoted in one source, and it's reinforced by Central Coast, RBC, and WNS as well.
How does a professional advisor help specifically with this complex picture we've painted? What's their role?
Well, a good advisor can provide personalized guidance tailored to your unique financial situation, your specific retirement dreams and goals, your health status, your family situation, and your tolerance for risk. They help with crucial aspects like creating that realistic, detailed budget that accounts for all these categories we've discussed. They help develop investment management strategies designed to make your money last throughout potentially decades of retirement. They can help implement tax optimization strategies throughout retirement, which, as we saw, are incredibly complex but can be very impactful. And they help integrate your retirement plan with your broader estate plan. Courtney Mahler also stresses that regular portfolio reviews are necessary because markets are dynamic and your own needs evolve over time.
And it's not just about the financial advisor in isolation, right? Sometimes it involves other professionals too.
Yes, absolutely. The sources often recommend collaborating with legal and tax professionals alongside your financial advisor. This ensures you have a truly holistic plan that addresses all the angles, the financial, the legal aspects like wills, trusts, power of attorney documents, and the specific tax implications for a much more secure and comprehensive retirement strategy. It's really about building a team to support your long-term financial well-being.
Okay. So to sort of bring it all together then, the fundamental lesson distilled from all these sources and perspectives seems to be that achieving a truly fulfilling retirement requires planning for much more than just keeping the lights on and food on the table.
Absolutely. To actually live the retirement you dream of, the one filled with travel adventures, deep engagement in hobbies, the freedom to pursue passions, you absolutely must proactively plan and budget for all that fun stuff. It's not an afterthought, it's a core component.
But, and this is the crucial but, that planning for the dreams has to be grounded in the realistic accounting for the less exciting, but absolutely crucial costs. The healthcare expenses that will likely rise with age, the taxes that won't just disappear, the inevitable maintenance your home and car will need, and the unexpected events that life inevitably throws your way, including potentially supporting family members or needing long-term care yourself.
Right. Thoughtful and comprehensive planning isn't about restricting your fun in retirement or forcing you to live a life of deprivation. It's actually quite the opposite. It's about building a robust financial framework that enables that desired lifestyle but makes it sustainable. It's about ensuring you have the financial freedom, not just for the first few energetic go-go years, but throughout your entire retirement, giving you the flexibility and security to pursue your passions and live a truly fulfilling life for potentially decades to come. Planning for the dreams really necessitates facing and planning for the realities.
Precisely said. It's about building a bridge of financial security that's strong enough to support the weight of your biggest dreams and resilient enough to weather the storms of unexpected costs.
Well put, and definitely something to think about as you prepare for your own deep dive into retirement planning.
So let's end with this question for you, our listener, to consider personally. Take a moment right now and vividly picture the very best days of your ideal retirement lifestyle. What specifically are you doing? Who are you with? And then ask yourself, what does that day, that activity, that lifestyle truly cost, really? And maybe the harder question, have you truly factored the full cost of that dream and the potential unexpected expenses that could threaten it into your financial plan? It might just be the most important budgeting exercise you ever do.